Holmes here. Come on up front, please. This, Peter, we have one matter before you. That's right, so I'm gonna have them, can you come to these chairs, please? So this is the zoning board meeting of Wednesday, January 8th. And I'm going to read the, you notice of public hearing. Town of East Bridgewater Zoning Board of Appeals notice of public hearing. The Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 8, 2025, 7 p.m. in East Bridgewater Junior Senior High School Auditorium, 143 Plymouth Street, East Bridgewater, on the petition of Maria and Rui Gomes. Did I say it right?
Yes.
All right. Applicant owner seeking a variance for relief from section 6A, location, side yard setback under zoning bylaw, and for all petitioners such other relief as the board may deem appropriate. The petitioner seeks to allow construction of a breezeway at 71 Brenda Ave and shown as map 93, parcel 56 on the East Bridgewater Assessors map, which is in the Residence R1 zoning district. Plans are on file for review at the Planning Building Department during normal business hours, 508-378-1608. Notice published in Enterprise on Tuesday, December 24th, 2024, Tuesday, December 31st, 2024. When you talk, and you'll be talking in a second, you have to state your name and address. And that goes for anybody that speaks tonight. You have to come to the mic, state your name and address. So we have your request. That's your house?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And your plan is to put you show the drawing, the breezeway in between?
In between, yes.
All right. When you bought the house, was the garage already there?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, you didn't build it?
No.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what you plan? The board may interrupt with the conversation. We won't, or we try not to, but tell us what you plan and why you need the variance.
Okay, plan is to, we already had a shed behind the garage.
Yeah.
So we needed to rebuild it as well as build a breezeway.
Excuse me, that's the shed you're talking about?
That's the shed I'm talking about,
Okay,
yes.
everyone got that picture? Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
As well as build a breezeway between the existing garage and the dwelling.
Okay. And so, what are you seeking? You should have it on your...
Yes, we seek
Actually, there is one typo in this application. The frontage is 41 feet. The frontage says 41 feet, but the frontage is, I think I saw it. It's a 110 feet. So I think what you did was you did the front yard. So with your permission,
yes.
on 2F, you see where it says dimensions of property?
Mm-hmm.
It says 41 feet for frontage.
Yes.
That wouldn't fly. So with your permission, correct is the 110 that's on your plan.
110.
So with your permission, can I put 110 on your application?
Yes, you may, please.
With your permission?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
So
the reason for the request for the variance is that we understand that we need 25 feet on the other side of the garage in order to be able to attach it to the existing dwelling.
Okay.
Currently, we only have 15, so we're seeking a 10-foot relief.
Okay, so right now, it's conforming, because even though the garage is only 15 feet, it's conforming because it's detached, correct?
Yes.
And our bylaws require if it's attached, you need 25 feet.
Exactly, yes.
Sometimes things don't make sense, do they? All right. So you have to when you get a variance, there's like 4 or 5 things you have to sort of meet the threshold for.
Uh-huh.
And the hardest one everyone has to do is hardship, financial or otherwise. I mean, obviously, this was built before you. The garage was built there before you bought the house, correct?
Before we bought the house, yes.
All right. And let me see if the board has any questions. Greg? No. Jerry? Kevin? Jim? All right, so we will review this to see if you met the threshold.
Yes.
We may make a decision later tonight, but we do have a long, well, hopefully not too long meeting. That's going to take a while. What I would suggest is somebody, you in tomorrow, Dot? Yeah, morning? All right, you could check with her at Dot at the building department. That's the
Okay.
phone number that's there.
Yes,
And how this works, if we make a decision, and you or somebody is aggrieved by our decision, you have a right to appeal, and that's what come in your letter, you have a right to appeal it to the courts, District Superior Land Court, take your pick. And that's if anyone's aggrieved. And if you don't, if nobody files, and if we allow it, nobody files an appeal, you'll get the copy of the decision, and then 20 days from when that decision's filed with the town clerk. After 20 days, and it'll be stamped, you'll see the date.
yes.
Then you come to the town, they'll give you a certificate that you record with the decision at the Registry of Deeds. You can't do it, you won't get that until after that appeal period is run.
Okay.
If you do appeal, if you feel you aggrieved or somebody is, you have to file that appeal within 20 days from the date it's stamped by the town clerk. It's one of the few things the court doesn't bend on, that that 20 days falls on a Sunday, they'll give you Monday, but the 20 days is kind of a solid date on that, if you are aggrieved.
I understand, yeah.
So what I would do is check with Dot in the morning, see if we made a decision. If not, we may not make it till the next meeting just because of the nature. We meet once a month. We're a volunteer board, and we try to
Yes.
do, but check with her in the morning,
Okay, we'll do.
all right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Okay. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. I didn't ask if anyone has anything. I apologize. I thought everyone was here for the other thing, Roy. I'm sorry.
Well, I am, but I'd urge extreme caution here, and for the reason being that design, there's at least 3 dozen properties in that subdivision that have that exact same design, with a 15-foot setback for garages off the line with 10 or 12 feet between the two. I'd also, from a quick view of the assessor's records, there's over 300 houses in the town of East Bridgewater that also match that. That was the standard design when the lots were 110 feet wide. Put the garage on the property line, put the house 12 to 15 feet away from the garage to meet zoning. So I would urge extreme caution in granting that variance because, as I said, there's hundreds of those situations in town. Once that variance is granted, that garage can be converted to part of the house. Now the house is only 15 feet from the property line. So again, I would urge caution in how you handle that.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Anybody else want to speak on this application, just this application? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Motion made by Kevin, seconded by Jerry. All in favor? Aye. So check with her in the morning, and she'll let you know if we made a decision or when we'll make it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Yep.
Let me get this stuff out of the way. Don, I'm putting this back in the file. The one you gave me. Don, is that your note? Yeah. Yeah, I left it one time at Tommy, and they called me. All right, we're gonna open the continuation of the hearing on the 40B on Route 18 and on Winter Street. What did we say, 7:15? What time is it now? What time is it now? All right, we actually have to wait the 3 minutes. That's what we said the time would be. All right, it's after 7:15. We're going to open up the continuation of the 40B hearing on, I don't know the exact date, Route 18 and on Winter Street. The applicant or the rep want to come up to the table? Can everybody hear us up here? Okay, thank you. I know a couple of times we've been here. And that mic should be on, Peter, I think.
Sounds it.
All right, so we last left, as you know, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. I don't know if anybody's new here, brief history. This is what they call a friendly 40B, in a sense that the town, in 2023, after a number of hearings, the Board of Selectmen signed an agreement with the developer to work with the developer on what they call a friendly 40B. 40B is the affordable housing statute. This town only has 3.99% of what's considered affordable housing. That's determined by the state. It's not determined by anybody here. The state takes a big role in anything that's under 10% in these towns. The threshold is 10%. If we had 11% of what the state has called affordable housing, I do not believe we would be here tonight or any of the other nights, but we don't. To some extent, our hands are tied, but we do have input on this. That's why they're before us. We are the granting board of the town for this project. We have one other 40B development in this town that I've been involved in 30 years on the board, and that's Wayside Farm, which is across the street from this development. We've had a few meetings. We've sort of let everyone speak about different things. Some stuff that we've spoken about is beyond our control, that we have no say over. But one of the last meeting we had in that storm, and I know a lot of people made it out, there was talk about, I'm just going to get some of the stuff out of the way early. It's not a subject for us. We don't have control of it, but I did reach out to the Department of Public Works. I spoke to Mr. Haynes. He's out of town on a conference, but he gave me a courtesy call yesterday. I don't know if there's some of the people from Winter Street here. I can't see who's here because the lights hit us. But Mr. Haynes indicated to me that the location of where the proposed driveway road off of Winter Street, the width of that road is 23.6. He said the town road widths range anywhere from the average of the preferred dimensions are 22 to 24 feet. As comparison, he told me that West Union Street, which is a main road, is only 20 feet in width. I said to him I would relay that information. I asked him if I could say that he said that. He said yes. Like I said, he's at conventions out of state, or I think he's out of UMass Amherst, actually. That's where they do these state conventions. So I hope that answers some questions, because we really don't have any control over that. We can certainly make recommendations to the applicant. What we're faced with as a zoning board, we oversee it. We basically don't really, from my understanding, and someone can correct me, there are some things that the Board of Health will get involved in, Conservation Commission, but we oversee zoning things. And I'd like to maybe talk about those tonight, amongst a few other things that we have to discuss, including what we think maybe some deficiencies in the plans, which maybe you guys can address at some point. We'll go over them. So on that, and there's also, and like I said, we do have representatives of the planning board, because the planning board sometimes will be more active in this, but it kind of circumvents it. For the record, I did receive various letters from town departments. They are posted on the website. And so one of them was from the planning board, one was from the fire department, but the fire department wasn't, and I will say what it is, the fire department wasn't about the safety. They've already basically cleared this for meeting, what they need to do. This project necessarily won't put a burden on the fire department. We've talked, they came and spoke at one of our earlier meetings. We've been doing this since July. What he suggested, and I'm just putting this out there for the applicant and for the attorney, is that there's what they call a local preference. And so the fire department used to require employees to live within a certain distance to the town, if not in the town. And in just 2 years, it's gone from 15 to 20 miles because basically affordability. And so he requested that we look in, and it is something that the state discusses, a local preference. The school committee, the school department, in a letter from the assistant superintendent, Dr. Williams, also suggested that would be a good idea. There are certain restrictions that we can, which restrict what we can do, but we'll discuss that if need be with the applicant. It makes sense because I think if everybody was here 2 or 3 meetings ago, and hope maybe Lynn, for people who don't know, Lynn Sweet's our technical advisor through the state. Affordable housing is different than low income. Affordable housing, if I recall the numbers, in East Bridgewater, I think the income was like $68,000 for like a $2,000. That's affordable for $2,000 a month, like apartment. So these aren't now. In Boston, affordable housing is now up to $91,000. They're looking to increase it. Some days I like to make that. Some days. So there are some benefits here. But saying that, I think we should maybe stick to some of the zoning, and then I'm going to open up to maybe if the planning board wants to have input, I certainly will have them. If one of them wants to have input, I see a couple members here. But we've never really dealt into too much of the zoning waivers. I know we did provide a list from our peer review person. And I know, Mr. Freeman, if you have a discussion on that, or you want to, how do you?
Sure, we're happy to, for the record, Peter Freeman, attorney representing the applicant. We're happy to go over the waivers. We had revised them as per your discussion or requests to be more specific, and we were able to eliminate some, and maybe a little hard to read. I did it with redlining so you would see the meaningful changes that we made, which includes the ones that we still need, explanations that perhaps hadn't been there before. So we're happy to go over that. The only other thing, 1 or 2 things I would say, we have had a lot of peer review and back and forth with our engineer. And should I hold a sec?
Yeah, why don't you present what you go over the ones you want, and then we'll have, I think we have our engineer here and
Yeah. So do you want to have our engineers present first in brief summary?
Yeah, that would be
And
fine.
then talk about the waivers later?
let's
Let them present what they've seen.
yeah, present what you've got.
Yeah,
Yeah, from the last hearing, why don't you present?
Sure. Sure. And,
And we'll save the waivers.
okay, sure, thanks.
So why don't your engineer present basically from what he might have delved out from the last meeting?
Sure. So I think first I'll have Deb Keller talk about, what she's done in response to Apex peer review. There are very lengthy reports from Apex and her responses, so I don't think it's necessary to go over each and every one of them. A lot of them, as you have seen, although there are still perhaps some questions, but the vast majority have now been stated by Apex to be satisfied, comment satisfied, things like that, so we don't need to go over everything. But I will turn it over to Deb, and she can go over the necessary things with you, and then we'll do the same with Jeff Bandini on traffic. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I have to take my glasses off to read the paper.
Could, yeah, just reintroduce yourself, please, and who you're with.
Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. So as stated, we did receive APEC's latest peer review letters this past Monday, dated January 3rd. So we initially went through them quickly, and as stated, a lot of the items were grayed out, were identified as being previously addressed, and then a lot of the remaining ones were already addressed or at least we closed out those items with Apex. Some of the items that I quickly looked at to see if we could address them prior to this meeting, and I believe that the applicant was able to resubmit some additional information. Quite a few of the comments referred to just wanting to see the details on the detail sheets, so that those have been submitted, so that eliminates quite a few of the outstanding comments. To highlight some of the ones that I think were focused, which was comment 13 on phase 1, just Apex was looking for us to revise the HydroCAD model a little differently than we analyzed it. Ultimately, in my response letter, I've shown that the outcome is the same. The peak rates of runoff in the proposed development will be equal to or less than existing conditions as required. So that has been provided. We also provided some elevations within. There is one isolated vegetated wetland. It's quite large on the phase 1 portion of the project, which in review, we wanted to make sure that that isolated wetland, the flooding component of that, did not increase. So we modeled that, and that's where the discussion between model A and B are, so that we make sure that we're modeling everything appropriately. So that was covered. Photometric plans, I finally got those. So those are in the current package for all phases. Those were some details. I think there was another HydroCAD minor adjustment on phase 3 and 4 that is needed. We are respectfully asking, I think there was a repeat comment on each phase regarding the stormwater pollution prevention plan, and we've requested that that be a condition of approval, that we provide that prior to construction, so that we could have, it is quite a lengthy document, and the construction, operation, and maintenance plan is our framework for that, which is incorporated into each stormwater report that's been provided. So we take that and we work with the site contractor for any site specifics that they may have, staging that they may need, equipment that they use, so that each one of those is more site specific. To set up that application now, we'd just be redoing it again with the site contractor, so therefore we were asking if that possibly could be provided as a special condition prior to construction. One of the previous comments that we addressed was looking at the project to comply with the requirements of the stormwater bylaw with respect to a 1-inch recharge volume, as well, or retention volume, as well as a phosphorus calculation. So we have provided those. One of the notes that Apex mentioned is that we are short in phases 3 and 4, slightly meeting those with that isolated phase. But if you look, what I've identified in here again was that I did provide an overall summary for the project, and as a project as a whole, we are well over the 1 inch of required retention for the entire project, almost I'd say 30–40% over. So the required is approximately 40,000 cubic feet, and we have 56,000 cubic feet total. So that would be one of the items that I'd like to just clarify with Dylan to make sure that that's all makes sense. And I know he is on vacation this week. He did mention that he might be able to connect via email occasionally. No. But I did mention with him about setting up a meeting. I believe that's what Lynn had mentioned as well, for early next week.
You guys need to send your times. I haven't seen
No one's asked me for my times, but I'm available anytime, and that's what I had told Dylan of last week. So I can shoot him an email so he has it when he gets back.
So you haven't been on the email chain? Because I think there's definitely been an email where
No.
it said I'm available these times.
I sent availabilities to Peter earlier today, but that's the only one I,
All right, Peter, are you on that email chain? I just want to look at it and see where this is.
No, as with Lynn, and it's possible I missed something, it's possible, but to my knowledge, I hadn't received anything about setting up a workshop, which is great, and we appreciate it, we all want it. But I have not seen anything until today either, Lynn. I might have forgotten to forward Deb's email to you, but I knew we'd be here tonight, so. But the good news is that Deb, as she just said, is apparently available the first few days of next week. And if Dylan's been on, a vacation, hopefully he's not booked up, because this has been in the works, and he had been copied apparently on the messages.
It looks like it is, you are not on the email. You are correct. So it.
Now and then I
looks
am,
like-
not always.
It looks like it is the internal town team here.
Yeah,
So let me coordinate with you.
sure,
And you said for early next week.
yes,
Absolutely.
I'm
absolutely.
assuming he's gonna come back on Monday and be swamped and wanna read everything. But let's see if we can find a Tuesday,
Yep,
Wednesday time.
great, appreciate it.
Sorry about that. That is kinda funny.
no, I believe those were pretty much all of the major changes. I did catch a few on the traffic comment letter for site plan review, which was just adding a notation on phases 2, 3, and 4 for the handicap spaces, just so that we're labeling those with a note. So we've added that to the site plans. Again, there were a couple of comments with regards to construction details, which are now provided. And we did clarify that the stacked parking spaces on Phase 3 would be assigned to the same residential unit, so that there would be proper coordination between those two spaces. And I can,
You'll have it up and running, that's what.
Are you done?
one quick thing I just wanted to note, Rob reminded me that he did coordinate with both the post office and the school department. There is a sketch in the submittal showing those locations for the bus stops as well as mail kiosks. I believe all the mail kiosks match the site plans. I think I need to double check on the bus stops to make sure that those match what we have on the site plans currently, so I will double check that. And I can either take questions or pass it off to our traffic consultant.
I think, do you have a question for her?
Yeah, let's, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate all the work that was done in between the meetings. One thing that I didn't notice is EV charging stations.
They are on the current, we did add them to phases 2, 3, and 4 locations on the surface parking. They were supplemental site plans.
Yeah, would it be the detail sheet or
No.
C3?
It's 3.1 on each phase.
I'm looking at phase 2, and maybe I'm just not seeing it. I gotta make it bigger.
Where did we put this? I know, but I'm trying to think on the site plan
I
where.
see the handicap, but I'm not.
I think they're across from the handicap, next to the fire lane turnaround to the left. There should be a note that points to them, noting that there is four EV designated parking spaces.
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. The other question I had was, it's hard for me because I don't like to have a hard copy set, like a really big set.
Sure.
But it looks like there's 3 or 4 different septic leaching reserve areas throughout the homeownership development. And it's unclear to me which units those leaching fields go to. Like, how many units are in a, you know, an area that's gonna be served by a septic system?
So
Is there, you know, like a lot plan that says, okay, units 1 through 10 are gonna be using this system?
We actually have separate septic design plans for each one of those systems, which designates the lots. So lot 1A and 1B would go to one system, and the only reason there's an A and B is because they're two lots across from the roadway. So that would be the, if you're coming from Winter Street coming in, that would be the first homeowners association or lots designated to the first system. Then there's two other lots that are identified, and you can see the lot division on the lotting plans of the Phase 1 development. And that's how it's broken up into the three homeowners associations and septic systems.
So there's 80 units, there's 3 HOAs, and
Yep.
there are, and so each phase has roughly 35,
Yeah.
6 sort of.
I'm going back, I haven't looked at the septic plans in a while, but I believe there's one that might have 28 units, one that has 30 units, but they're below, they're within the Title V requirement.
I didn't see it clearly defined anywhere.
You can see them tucked into different areas where the leaching fields are. I just, you know, the screen is tiny.
Sure.
So for me to just try and figure out what goes with what, you're telling me that there is a lot division plan that shows 3 distinct, lots that will be served by their own septic.
That is correct. The only difference is, and just for clarification, Lot 1 is technically 2 lots because the road right-of-way goes through it. So it's Lot 1A and Lot 1B that is included in one homeowners association. So it would be 2 lots.
I think that the reason that I want the clarification is that, you know, Peter and I are starting to work on a decision, and I want everything like that to be just really crystal clear that we
Absolutely.
have it on paper on a plan, but we also have it in writing. Because it's going, so it's almost like you're gonna have phases within a phase on the homeownership, that are going to need to have the Title V approval
Correct.
in the next phase of this. So if you would be so kind after this, tomorrow or the next day, to just let me know what sheet I should be looking at so that I can, there's just been a lot of revisions, and I just wanna make sure that I'm looking at the right pages when I'm trying to add detail in.
For lotting, correct? Is
For
what,
the homeownership, the different homeownership associations.
Okay.
And the units, and I don't even know if you wanna be so bold as to give them numbers, so we can say units 1 through 28 are part of this, units, whatever. And sometimes we see, and it may not, you know, sometimes we see like exclusive use areas, but I don't know if each unit itself is gonna be its own lot, or if each condominium is gonna have its own units.
so
So
the,
it's more just sort of legally
Sure,
understanding.
sure. I can definitely clarify that, and it would be starting with the lotting plans which define the lots, and it would be a homeowners association per lot, not individual units.
Right, okay,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's gonna be 3 homeowner associations in the
Yes,
And those homeowner associations will have their own,
board of trustees?
well,
Yeah.
their own septic systems
Yes,
and
but
their
the
own
own-
reserves.
right.
correct.
That will then need to, each one of them will need to get their own Title V certificates.
So what I can do is reference those lotting plans, and then I can tell you which units are within that lot. That's what you're trying to, information you're looking for, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and I guess, I just want to do one.
But I'm jumping the gun here, but there's no septic approval plan approved though, right?
Not yet.
We can't file the septic until the lots are created, so that the
Well,
individual
so-
lots,
The lots are gonna be, let me just take a step back.
Because I'm baffled that the lots aren't created, then go ahead.
So basically, I assume someone
Oh, can-
has
Yep, we'll get it, yep, sorry.
Sorry.
Is it movable?
So basically, the zoning board of appeals will be given a lot plan that they will need to essentially endorse for this, rather than like an approval not required plan.
Right.
You will have something showing, taking out of the overall lot, 3 lots that are gonna have their own HOAs that are gonna be dependent on their own septic systems, that are gonna have their own reserves. That will come out of this hearing, approving that plan. So they can't go to the Board of Health until they have that lot division plan, if you will.
So
And
it's
we can talk
typical
more
of
about
a standard definitive subdivision plan. You wouldn't go and file with Title V for that septic design on an individual lot until that lot gets created through the subdivision process.
So they're gonna have a shared septic system for 3 different owner associations.
I guess I'm puzzled because you went before the board
No,
with a plan in April.
what we were looking for is just input from the board before to make sure that the designs would be acceptable. But they again clarified that they couldn't review it until we created the lots.
And I think
Oh,
that
actually,
when
that's what it
Dylan
says.
comes back, when we have our, we can have a working session with him as well, because I know that he's looked at presumably the setbacks of the septic to make sure that they comply with what the state rules are. I'm assuming you've done some preliminary soil testing, witness soil testing at this point, so.
We have,
I
yes.
think that it's gonna be really helpful for us to connect with Dylan on this, but it does look like there has, there's been a fair amount of thought around this. The board itself hasn't focused on it yet.
Yeah, because I'm looking at a letter from the Board of Health that actually denied your application, so you must have filed an application in April, an actual application. And it was denied by the town. And it actually said that you had to go to DEP for it, if I read this
We
letter
did.
correctly.
And that was, what we were trying to do was start the process. We didn't want their approval at that time because we knew we had to go through you first. What we were trying to do was get their input on the systems. But what they're saying is they can't review it until we create the lots. And then, so we have to finish the process with the ZBA before we can formally file with Board of Health.
Okay, maybe it should have been worded wrong, because
Yeah.
this letter does not say that.
Yeah.
This letter says that somebody filed for an application, which leads me to believe they may be trying to circumvent something, my own opinion, nobody else's opinion, and that it got denied. It doesn't say that you came for a informational purposes. Someone actually went to the trouble of filing the application. I'm sure that the Board of Health could have advised you if you went and said, this is what we're planning on doing, what do you suggest? So, again, I'm just reading what we have. Because
Mr. Chairman?
I don't understand why you're not go using a storage system that's being provided, but that's a different issue. Peter, you got something on that topic?
Just quickly, we had, I believe, mentioned that way back at the beginning, and it was on a misunderstanding, because a submission to get advice, as Deb said, was made, but they did not deny, they didn't have a Title V application, because Deb couldn't have done the plans.
Well, we did complete the design plans. We completed formal test pits out on the site. We wanted to ensure that all the Title V systems could fit on the site during this process as well. So we have those designs, they're complete. We're holding them until we have formal approval of the lots,
Right.
so that we can formally go back
Okay.
to the Board of Health.
So the explanation that I got is that they, quote unquote, I still don't think denial is the right word, but because the lots aren't divided, which is what Deb said
Right.
earlier just now, because the lots weren't divided, even though we know that we satisfy the requirements, they said, well, as one lot, we can't approve it.
Right.
But it wasn't an actual application. That can't happen, as Deb has said a couple of times now.
I don't doubt it, but I mean, I'm reading their words, not mine.
Oh, I understand. No,
The
no, no.
application that was approved.
I regret that the letter was written that way, but I think the key thing, which Deb also said, is we'll finish up
Yep.
with
No, it's
Dylan.
okay. I just wanna make
with
sure
Dylan,
here.
and they'll advise you, so I understand your concern, but,
Yep.
you know, you'll get the proper advice
Yep.
from Dylan.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you for clarifying that. Do you have anything else for Deb?
I'm good.
Do you
Okay.
want to turn it over to the next guy on the file line? Yep, Mr. Garner. Pardon, about this?
Relative to that specific issue?
Yes, you can. So this is,
Because Roy
Board,
Gardner,
just
Roy
identify
Gardner from the
yourself.
planning board.
yep, just,
I've just heard for the first time that we're proposing basically a single project with infrastructure roadway design with 3 separate homeowners associations.
that's what I heard.
And we're attempting to gerrymander this into individual lots so that they don't cross the 10,000 gallon threshold as required by DEP. That letter is correct. I saw that letter when it was written. The application was denied for several reasons, one of which these aren't lots. It's a single project under state law. It's a single 40B project. Homeowners that live in that should not be hamstrung by some gerrymandered 3 sets of homeowners associations when they have common access and roadways coming in off a public way. That, in my opinion, is a fatal flaw in someone who's going to spend $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for a home and have a gerrymandered system so that they can beat the DEP regulations. And that's what they're doing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Freeman?
Respectfully, there is nothing being gerrymandered. I've done hundreds, probably 150, 240B applications in almost 150 towns in Massachusetts. And as Deb, again, it's beating it to death, but it's necessary given that comment. There's no gerrymandering. There's no trying to get around DEP regulations. There's no local Board of Health bylaws or rules that we're asking for waivers from. Our engineer, who's very experienced, and my experience, is that it's totally the same as the dozens and dozens of other projects. You have a large piece of land or an amalgam of lots, and under 40B, the ZBA not only has the power, but is duty-bound, essentially, as you have said, to create the lots that are being requested. So, of course, right now, the Board of Health would deny it because it is one lot right now. But it's not gerrymandering. It's not trying to get around DEP. We will comply with DEP. It's the developer's risk. If at the time after you, presumably not being presumptuous, but presuming that we get approval and endorsement of the plan, as Lynn properly explained, which is what we're requesting, and then the applications for disposal works construction permits with the Board of Health are filed, and if the Board of Health at that point says, no, we don't think it complies with Title V, then there's a process for us to appeal it to DEP and all of that. So it's developer's risk. So, you know, I respect concern that is expressed, but it's not really founded in the way the law and the Title V regulations work. So I think that, again, rather than continuing on this without Dylan here, let's have that workshop. He'll report and advise, and that's satisfactory. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. We'll hear from,
I'll let Jeff
yep,
pop up.
just identify yourself again, name and company.
Good evening, members of the board. Jeff Bandini, Senior Project Manager with Niche Engineering. Excuse me. So when we were here in December, we had submitted a response to comments to Apex's latest response to our memo that contained a lot of information pertaining to the traffic study. So when we were here in December, we had yet to receive the latest response to comments letter from Apex, but in the last few weeks we were able to receive that letter and provide an additional response. Basically, the idea behind Apex's response was that most, if not all, of the comments that Niche responded to had been satisfactory and were closed out. The exception being the discussion on the number of parking spaces. So in Apex's letter dated, I think it was January 3rd, Apex had requested some additional information regarding other 40B projects that had been approved in the vicinity of the site. We had previously included a list of said projects back in our letter from October, stating the amount of parking spaces and the number of parking spaces per unit. And those similar projects outlined 1.33 parking spaces per unit. So in providing additional nearby community approved projects per Apex's request, we were able to research 4 additional projects that had been approved that contained similar parking ratios, not only to what was included in Nich's previous response to comments back in September, but also included ratios that were within the vicinity of the parking ratios that we're including as part of this project, which is in or around 1.33 parking spaces per unit. And again, the number of units in the sample projects fluctuate, some above, some below that 1.33, but generally in the vicinity of that number. And I just wanted to bring back to the table the consideration that we provided in our previous memorandum about the ITE parking generation. And Apex had outlined that their preference was to use information from locally sourced projects that were approved rather than ITE. However, we wanted to bring back to the table that ITE, understanding that it is more of a nationwide outline of the number of parking spaces per unit, it does provide at least an adequate sample of similar projects. And in so doing, their latest request, where we now have 10 sample projects in the vicinity of the proposed project that show that the parking ratio of 1.33 that we're providing for the driveways along Route 18 is appropriate for this project. So that was the only outstanding comment on the memorandum. I did want to acknowledge that we received a letter this afternoon from the planning board based on their recommendations. And there was a few comments pertaining to the site driveway design and potential for turning lanes on Route 18. And I know this did come up at our last hearing, but I wanted to reiterate that should this project receive approval, we would have to apply for a Mass DOT State Highway Access Permit, and Mass DOT would be provided the opportunity to provide feedback to the project site and make any sort of necessary updates in order to achieve that permit. So I just wanted to acknowledge that letter that we received this
Well, I
afternoon
think
as well.
I indicated, and I speak for the board on this, that we could actually, in a decision we reach, we would put that in as a recommendation. I know we can't, but we would put that in as a recommendation, a strong recommendation, that be done, because we did it for Wayside Farm, they have the turn lane, it's applied. Just by a chance, and I saw you, Mr. Garden, I saw your letter today for the Board of, Planning Board. Did you see the suggestion about trying to put the driveways to both projects?
Yeah, that was something else I wanted.
I know you just got it, but did you see that suggestion?
I did. Yeah, there's a lot of considerations to be had there in terms of where we located our project site driveway now, pertaining to some of the features on the site, making sure that we're designing the parking and the buildings and everything to adhere to a lot of the regulations, the zoning regulations that the town has, stormwater, driveway design, runoff, things like that. So, simply moving the driveway to be closer to the Wayside Farm driveway isn't a straightforward approach. Shall we felt that way to begin with, we certainly would have located it there. From a traffic perspective, locating driveways in more of a cross pattern certainly increases the number of conflict points as vehicles come in and out of both driveways. So having a T intersection offset by several hundred feet would provide a little bit more separation between the turning movements. So that's part of the reason why we designed it the way we did.
I think you should let our expert respond, and then I'll say a few things.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I think that's all I had.
All right.
Unless there's any questions that I can answer. while
Yeah,
I'm
you
here.
might need a question after, so if you might need a question after Steve
Stephen.
speaks.
Sure thing.
Steve, can you come over to the table, at least the mic, so people can hear you and identify yourself?
Good evening. I'm Steve Shikari, representing the peer reviewer I performed the traffic and parking peer review for this project.
Just so, Mr. Shikari, actually, he's hired by the town to review what's presented, so he's working for the town, just so people know how this works. So the town has hired Apex. When we started, it was something else.
Yes,
And,
environmental parking.
So he's representing the town. He reviews what the applicant has submitted on certain things. So go ahead, Steve. I just wanted the town know who you were. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, so, yeah, as was mentioned by the applicant's team, we did receive earlier today some responses to the recent review that we had. If I want to go in order, in terms of the site plans, well, I've got to say our project manager and site civil reviewer, Dylan O'Donnell, is not here tonight. He's out for this week. He'll be back, and we'll have a working session with the town and the applicant's team to work through some of the site-specific comments. But there are some minor items that we had open in terms of the transportation aspects of it, some signage, pavement markings. We did see that there are some more details that have been provided, but we haven't had a chance to dive into the review. In terms of the traffic side and parking side itself, we did receive an additional response, and as the applicant's traffic engineer mentioned, there's only one comment that is left open having to do with the number of parking spaces. The comment that we had made on during our previous review was that we outlined that there are two things about the number of parking spaces. We know that the number that they provided does not meet the town's bylaws. So the purpose of this parking memo and all the information they provided was to compare it with some local projects nearby and the nationwide averages. So the comment we made about the nationwide averages made available by the Institute of Transportation Engineers was that the data points that these graphs are developed based off of, those are, from different states. There might be, the comparable size developments, but they are in different states, different contexts, and they are in different decades. So some might be old, some might be newer. We thought this may not be appropriate to base a decision off of. However, the nearby developments could provide a better reference. Sorry. So the more local projects nearby could provide a better reference, but to Board's point, based on your local knowledge, some of the developments that were provided as a comparison, you mentioned they had a senior housing element to it, and one information that was missing and we outlined in our response was that the total number of units have been provided with the total number of parkings, but the breakdown of how many one-bedroom, two-bedroom, three-bedroom units are in each of those developments was not provided for us to verify if it's like a fair comparison between the two. And there are 4 more developments that are provided in their recent response, but we still don't see the breakdown of the number of units in them. So that's where we stand. I'm happy to answer any questions. Actually, I do need to mention that I need to mention that we did review the letter from the planning board, and the number of parking spaces that they recommended is lower than what is typically required in the town's bylaws. And on a quick back of an envelope calculation, it looks like the number of parkings that has been provided or proposed under the current sites are approximately between 50 to 60% of this new recommendation by the planning board. Just wanted to mention that as well.
Thank you.
So-
Yeah, go ahead first.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have to agree with our consultant. The issue here is the ratio of 2 and 3 bedrooms on this project. I am not working on any projects that have, 80% or more 2 and 3 bedrooms. Most developers I work with the majority, 65% or so, one bedrooms these days. So my concern is that, again, on the 40Bs that we work on, we're usually have ratios between 1.5 and 1.7. And that's, again, based on smaller units, presumably that would have less occupants. And I'm sure if you did peel back the layers of the comps that you're looking at, and I probably have them in my office, you will see that they are not the larger bedroom counts. I don't really want to think we should belabor this issue. We certainly are not going to count the 3 parking spaces that you're going to be giving for the homeownership units, because as we know, those are going to be 3 separate homeownership associations. The 3 rental projects are not going to have access to that. So at 1.3 parking spaces per unit on the rental, even if they share them across the three of them, there is a concern. So we would ask you, to the extent that you can identify other spaces that could be striped down the road, should it prove that there is not enough parking on the apartments, then so you're either going to get the waiver denied, or if we have a plan that shows you can squeeze in another whatever 10 or 15 or 20 spaces somewhere, I think that's the better way to go. I don't think the board has to require you to build them until you need them, but I think it would be extremely helpful to the extent that you could identify where they might go. But from, there's not enough. There's no transportation here, and I think you've heard it from our expert and from my experience. So
My problem
it's
is,
a request. It's not a demand.
my problem is that you're, first of all, again, the 4 new comparisons sit near either trolley cars in Milton, except maybe the Blue Hook, that's a little bit further, but they all sit on public transportation lines. The Woodlands and the Aldwood Avenue Station are just that. They're right at the T station. So we don't have public buses here. We don't have subway or trolley or anything nearby, or commuter rail. I mean, we have them nearby, but not in this town. We have none. My other question, I guess, would be to you, Jeff, right?
Yes.
So the 1.33, that takes into effect all the parking, correct?
It actually does not. That was the more conservative number that we used in our evaluation.
So when you say the 1.33, are you just talking about just the apartments?
We're talking about just the rentals on Route, that have access on Route 18,
Okay, I don't know if
correct?
that was clear in here, but, okay. Because it's tough to ask somebody, to come in and rent an apartment and not have parking for them. I mean, I understand that's what is going on in the city, and like, again, if you're near a train station, so far, you've used 2 examples that get skewed, because you used the ones near the elderly housing in Weymouth last month, and now you're using 4 that have clear access to public transportation. 2 of them right at the Abington station, of the commuter rail, and 1 in Milton's near the trolley car, and the other's right on and they're both on bus lines, MBTA bus lines. So that skews the required parking necessary, because obviously when you do that, similar to this MBTA thing that the courts upheld today, when you do that, you're saying you don't need the parking because you have other access. People that live here can't take a MBTA bus to Market Basket, Stop and Shop, whatever. They need cars. So I think we have an issue with the cars. I mean, one way to create more parking is maybe reduce the number of units. We've done that before in town. Wait a second, please. You'll be recognized. So it's just, the parking's going to be a big issue, to be very honest with you, because I don't think it's easy to say we have these other things that are one point, and I'm looking at these ones, and literally, Randolph Ave is 28, Route 28 in Milton. Blue Hill Parkway is the tail end of Route 28, up by Mattapan, which is right on the trolley car and the bus line, and the two in Abington are right at the train station. I mean, we're not getting some that say, and maybe they're not available to compare, but we're not getting a comparison that's equivalent to what is in this town, because again, we don't have that. I don't think there's any plan the MBTA is going to bring the buses through here that I know of. And there's no indication that we don't have train tracks here they're going to put. So this is a car-centric town for the most part, which these aren't. I mean, you might as well give us the Aeronaut in Weymouth, which is right at the train station, because the Alta at the station is exactly that. It's at the train station. But that's additional. I don't have to address it now, but you know that's a concern. And I think that you've raised that to some extent, Steve. I appreciate it. If you identify yourself and you're speaking to this topic, we've got to stay on topic.
This is about the parking spaces.
Yep.
So Meredith Walsh, 160
Address,
North
yeah.
Ridge Drive. So to still with the parking spaces, if you notice in phase 4, 3, and 2, all the affordable units are only allotted one parking spot, all of them, which the other ones, if they're market, they are either given one spot or 1.4, 1.23, or 1.73 parking spots. So if you get an affordable house unit, then you are only allotted one parking spot, regardless of you having 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedrooms. So there are 20 in phase 4. There are 4 units that are 3 bedrooms, and they're only given one spot. So if you have 3 bedrooms,
The state's not going to allow that. They're not going to allow whatever the market rate are given for free, the affordable units are given for free.
this is right from your plans. This is right from these plans right here. I screenshot them. If you want to come up and look. This is,
Oh, see, I apologize, we can't hear you.
this is yours.
Excuse me. I know, but we need to all be in the conversation if possible.
So I apologize.
No, they can rebut it in a minute. They can rebut
Yeah,
it in
no,
a
he
minute.
was disputing that I took a picture from here. So this is where I'm reading them. I mean, I can find that and pull it up for you guys if you want that. And I don't know, maybe you guys have updated ones. These are what's on the East Bridgewater website. Just pulling that up there and looking. And so there's a difference between if you bought or you are renting versus the affordable ones, which I have an issue with because it should be equality. And then the 3 bedrooms for the market are also only allotted 1 each. So I don't know how you increase the number of bedrooms. So if you have a 1 bedroom, you have a 1 parking spot. If you have 2 bedrooms, this is phase 2, you have 1.4 parking spots. But if you have 3 bedrooms, you have 1 parking spot. So if you're increasing the number of bedrooms, I don't know how you would decrease the amount of parking spots, because more people would be living in that particular unit. So,
Appreciate the
you know.
comment. Just as one of the conditions of the permits, should it issue, is that they are going to have to provide what's called affirmative fair marketing resident selection plan. That plan is going to have to pass muster by both the ZBA as well as the state. And so if there is some sort of perceived discrepancy between what is given free to market rate residents
Versus
and what is
affordable.
given free to affordable residents, it will be addressed at that
Okay.
particular point in time. I'm not familiar with what you're seeing on the
sure.
plans.
I'll try to find it on the plans up here.
Yeah, the other thing I want to say is that there are plans that are like on the select board's website that are from, a way back before, this started, when they were dealing with the sewer easement. And then the most current information is on the ZBA website.
On East Bridgewater.
The zoning board of
Mass.
appeals website
Yeah,
versus the
that's
select
where we
boards.
were looking at these.
Okay.
And then the
We'll
other
get to
thing.
the bottom of it. It's a
Sure,
good-
yeah,
it's a
no,
good
and that's,
point.
like I said, it would be helpful if all the, like, the old ones were deleted and new ones updated were accessible, if that's the case. But the other issue I'm also concerned about is where's the visitor parking? If you go to visit these people and they only have one parking spot, like, where do their friends park?
I think we did discuss visitor parking briefly at last meeting. I think parking's like an overriding issue. Now, can I ask, Jeff, is, in the, up to date, are units designated parking spaces? Are they gonna be designated parking spaces for the units? Because how do you designate 1.3 if I get, so, like,
I-
are they gonna have designated parking spaces?
So I'm gonna just take a flyer here, and Peter, and you know, let me know if I'm wrong on this. So typically with regard to parking spaces, most units are given one parking space for free, period. And that means every affordable one, every market rate unit one. One way to control the number of cars is if somebody needs another parking space, they often have to pay for that. I don't think, so I think it's going to be done by the professional management company here as they enter into leases with people. Because they know how many parking spaces they have and how many staff members they have and visitors and, you know, pickup and delivery and Uber and you name it. So these are going to be professionally managed, and I would hazard a guess that is the way it's going to be controlled through the leasing process. But it would be helpful to know what you're thinking at this point in time if I've gotten it totally wrong.
Jeff, do you know if there's gonna be assigned parking? Does anybody know?
You don't usually assign.
Well, you know what I mean, well, but I mean, is it gonna be, when you lease it, you get one parking spot?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
Okay.
So when a two-bedroom, you get one parking spot too?
I believe that's correct.
In a three-bedroom?
What Lynn said is essentially.
Yeah, it's a way to discourage people from bringing more cars,
Yeah,
actually.
but again, that's a problem, because like I
But
said.
it could be $20 a month or $10 a month.
know,
It's
but
not
it-
like they're gonna be charging Boston fees of
No,
$300
I'm
or
not worried about
$400 a
I'm
month.
worried about the parking. If you get a three-bedroom unit, but we require 3 parking spaces for that under our bylaw, well, that's a big ask to go less more than half down. Or you're gonna give one parking to a three-bedroom unit. I mean, this may not be families, there may be 2 friends renting an apartment, they both have a car. Do anyone have any input on that, or?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Freeman.
Again, we just briefly, I respect the questions, and I understand, especially with your experts' own advice, that we still have to address it.
Okay.
I would just basically reiterate what Lynn said, and also that with professional management, they take care of it, and they're not going to create a mess with the parking. That said, I'm not relying on that alone to expect to satisfy you.
Okay.
And I think, you know, everything in terms of understanding the issues and listening to the public, it's helpful. But again, good news, I think it's great, and it sure as heck, I hope it happens early next week, but a workshop to go over all this will be very helpful.
Okay. No, I appreciate it.
so,
Like I
yeah.
said, I'm just trying to, I mean, I think this is some of the concerns they have about parking. We're talking about parking now. I mean, our bylaws are pretty clear, and I don't want to belabor that, but sir, you've been waiting. Identify yourself and your address, and is it to the topic we're discussing?
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, overall, I disagree with a lot of points, but,
Oh, you got to state your name and
You know,
address, please.
yes, my name is Eric Woodward. I live at 162 Winter Street, and I'm just kind of reflecting on the Winter Street portion of the project for now. But I definitely feel that a project of this size should kind of have more of a comprehensive review with multiple boards, but I'll stick to what we're talking about. I think this is just a classic case of a builder trying to put 10 pounds into a 5-pound bucket. You know, I know you pointed out that the road of Winter Street is 23.6 feet wide and some minor site trimming is to be done. I think that's bare bones minimum. As someone who lives on Winter Street can attest, there are several sharp corners. And I'd like to once again point out that, you know, usually a project of this size would require some surrounding infrastructure improvements. The average home, I believe, is usually calced about 10 vehicle trips per day. That doesn't even include deliveries, guests, et cetera. 80 units would mean a minimum of 800 more vehicles on Winter Street per day. I would strongly suggest to the board sidewalks on Winter Street, stop signs or lights, and possibly reworking some dangerous intersections that are going to dump traffic out there. Summer and Elm, Thatcher, Summer. I just think that the project should be scaled back. 80 units is pretty excessive for that small residential street.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a lot more comments as well.
Oh,
but
okay,
it's
I'm sorry.
It's conservation related. I still feel that this should be a comprehensive review, not piecemeal.
Conservation will be dealing this. They got, so they, Eric, I don't know if, just so you know, they did file with the conservation, so there'll be a hearing on that. They did file, my understanding is yesterday.
I know, but having a design with
I-
zoning and stuff and buildings.
I understand, and I wish we could do it too, but we're, Mr. Gardner, I'm gonna have Mr. Gardner, I'll go Mr. Gardner, then you, Deb.
Yeah, so
You gotta identify yourself again, you know.
I'm sorry, Roy Gardner, Planning Board. So he touched on a word that I find incomprehensible, the way this is being done, but when we did Wayside Farms, admittedly 3 decades ago, give or take a few years, the waivers requested, the way that was handled was that all of the waivers that were needed from the various town rules, regulations, so on and so forth, were individually and required to be individually identified by the applicant. And while there's a couple of things identified in here, the request for waivers dated 1/6/25 basically just says, we want a waiver from everything from all town boards. And that's literally what it says. And that just came in.
Just-
So in addition to that,
All right, wait a minute, so, Roy, just so you
well,
know.
thank you for
Roy.
that, sir. I appreciate that.
Mr. Gardner, just so you know, we got at some point, and I don't know if it came from our, that's why I opened the meeting about talking about the zoning bylaws. We got, and I don't know if it went out to, this was a while ago, a zoning bylaw, the actual breakdown of the waivers requested or.
For zoning, understood.
Zoning, yeah, zoning bylaws, yeah.
There's-
Right, and then they mentioned, like you said, they mentioned some of the other stuff on this document also. We got.
Right, there's several other things here, but
Look at waivers when we get through these 2 topics.
we've done 340Bs in town, and none of them were done like that.
Did you see this? I was curious, because you're on the planning board.
Yes, I did.
You got this about just the catch-all, but you got the waivers and the catch-all stuff?
Yes.
Okay, that's what, okay.
We'll get back to it.
I just want to make sure you got that at least.
But the other comment I had is that for the parking, from the previous meeting, we had requested some sample parking from 40Bs, because the list they had given us didn't seem that applicable to our area. So we get 4 more, and as you note, those are even less applicable than the previous ones. Now, there's 3 large 40Bs in our vicinity. 2 of them are off of 104. One's in Bridgewater, one's in Raynham. Those are similar in many ways to these. Large, 4-story, all multifamily apartment-style buildings. Those are the 2 that are most like this. I expected when we got a new list, they'd be in there. And instead, we get 4 projects. One is an over 55 project. All 4 are on public transportation. 2 of them are in walking distance of a train station. So my response to that is they're not being responsive to what the town is asking for. That's pretty clear.
I don't
Because
disagree.
none of those 4 samples fit. They don't even come close to fitting what we're asking for. And for him to sit at that table and say that, that's offensive.
I would ask if you have any, but you don't have to, if either one of you, as far as dealing with that, because you've heard my own views with the parking too, that it's gotta be some adjustments. And I know we're at a stage that you're gonna maybe reevaluate things and maybe tighten things up. But you know, I said the same thing Mr. Gardner did. I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't think we'll know where these things are, but in the 2 meetings, we haven't had anything that's basically what we're doing here. That being said, we got to keep the meeting moving. Is it Debbie, right?
Yes.
Please identify yourself again, please.
Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I just wanted to clarify that we did file with Conservation. I got confirmation today. We will be on their January 27th meeting, and butter notifications will be going out in the mail later this week, so I would anticipate everybody would be receiving those in the next week.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if everyone heard, the conservation meeting is on January 27th. So if you're in a butter to the year, you'll get notice. If you're not in a butter, you better mark down if you want to attend. It's January 27th. That what you said? And is that at the town hall? Did they say?
They didn't tell me.
Okay, so you check the website. It's also posted at town hall. When you go into the right, there's a bulletin board. All meetings have to be posted there if you don't check the website. Lynn, what do you want to deal with now?
I think it would be good to do maybe any more public comment, and then we can go through the waivers.
Yeah. On what we've discussed so far today, just what we discussed today, because we're gonna move on to, you know, what they're seeking now, the waivers and stuff. So why don't we move on to that? So let's. I mean, we can. Obviously, the parking we see is an issue. I mean, that's a waiver you're requesting, and our own engineer suggested we don't accept that right now, at least. In his, is that still true, Steve? I saw in your letter today or yesterday about the parking situation. You said at this time we should, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, what you're asking is with the new recommendation
Well,
by
yeah,
the
I mean,
planning. Yes, the parking is still doesn't satisfy that requirement either.
Thank you. And then, does anybody here have comments about the parking, or does anybody, you know?
I think they've gotten the point.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I got to give everybody the
I
opportunity.
think they're aware.
So I don't know how you want to go through this, if you want to go through each.
I think we should see
They should-
whether or not there's any more public comment, and then go through the waiver list.
Well, I asked, and nobody stood up. So,
Oh, nobody stood up. Okay, we're there.
So we're at
Yes,
the-
let's go through. Yeah, Peter, do you want to go through them, or who on your team wants to go through the waiver list?
So again, for the record, Peter Freeman, attorney representing the applicant. So what we sent and what you should be looking at is very colorful. There's redlining and there's yellow, because I wanted to highlight it even more, what we've changed. So just starting from the beginning, zoning bylaws, section 2B1, we withdrew that. It was a question about 40-foot wide, so we withdrew that. Section 5A1 allowed uses in the R1 district. Only single-family dwellings are allowed, so we're obviously asking for a waiver to allow multifamily. That's very specific. Section 5K3A, same use thing in the industrial one, the same thing, because prohibited are any uses that are not expressly permitted, so multifamily is not expressly permitted. Section 5M, floodplain and wetlands bylaw. Section 5A, any structure including, this is somewhat technical, mobile homes designed for human occupancy unless the lowest floor including basement is located at or above the 100-year base flood elevation, including sanitary sewer systems and some requirements about fill. So we are asking for a waiver on that, and you know, after we go through it, if you'd like a more detailed explanation from Deb, how she calculated that. Then again, we have removed, as I said way back at the outset tonight, we've removed another request that had been in there initially, the FEMA Flood Hazard Protection Overlay District. We've withdrawn the request, and we had included something that I'm not sure how we picked it up, but we don't think it exists, floodplain district. So that's not something that's being requested. Section 5.9, it has apartment requirements. I've now stated it as withdrawing the request because it applies only to multiple unit apartments in districts where they are allowed. So, you know, you have to exercise your discretion on the overall plan approval, but we don't really need a waiver from this because this use isn't allowed in the district. Section 5.0, or O, I think it's O, the letter O, sorry. Timbering and earth removal, and it's somewhat technical. I mean, we're not going to do a timbering and earth removal project. That's not what it is, but as you know, there's lots of earth moving and excavation and what have you. And, you know, what it says is two things that, you know, if you want a technical explanation, of course, later Deb can provide it, but really, under the 40B law, which is what I now inserted here, even though I stated it generally at the start of our waiver request, the 40B regulations specifically state that waivers are not needed from special permit provisions of zoning bylaws. Waivers are only needed from the requirements for underlying, for as-of-right uses. And this is clearly in the bylaw a special permit use. So, you know, again, we're not asking to operate any earth removal operation, but it's a special permit provision, so under 40B, we don't need to ask for that. The next one, again, still zoning, is Section 5V, development phasing. Basically, there's a section with great details, and I printed it out. I didn't attach it, but there's a whole schedule of a limitation on the number of building permits per lot per year, and we're asking for a waiver. It's quite restrictive, and we don't think there's any, as true with all of these things, we don't think there's any adverse impact by allowing us to get a waiver from that. The project simply couldn't proceed as necessary financially with such a limitation. And then, again, a lot of specifics, the dimensional requirements in Section 6 in your Table 6A. There's, I guess I'll just read them quickly. What we've done now is we've stated what's required as to minimum lot area, lot frontage, front yard, side yard, rear yard. We've listed the requirement. We've broken it down per phase, and we show exactly, you know, what we're proposing. And I would say most of them comply. Some of them we have less in terms of areas or feet that are required. And it's all spelled out, the details, so I won't take the time to read them here, but they're all very detailed. And that continues on to the next page. And then this we had previously, at least I think we had, but anyway, Section 6A, Note 4, requires a 50-foot separation between buildings, and we're asking for a waiver for our proposed 10-foot minimum. Section 6D4, off-street parking. Enough said. There's related sections, but enough said for tonight. Thank you. Rules and regulations under the subdivision of land. Section 3, procedures for submission of subdivision plans, and we're asking, which is totally typical of 40B, we're asking to waive the requirement to apply to the planning board for approval. Then the specific sections 3B2, an environmental impact statement, asking for a waiver, and we submit, as I believe is always the case when there's detailed plan, and 40B applications, when there's detailed plans and substantial peer review, which we respect, that takes the place of filing a separate environmental impact statement, because all of the various reviews encompass all those factors. Section 4, design standards. For submission, there are a bunch of technical things. They are specifically listed. I don't think I need to read them now. Again, if you have specifics, Deb can certainly explain why, you know, she has said we need those waivers. And that, you know, goes on to the next page, including the last one, 5H, street lighting. And, you know, we're asking that it be approved as shown on the plans. And as Deb said earlier, she has now submitted, I think it's prepared by someone else, right? Mm-hmm. But we do have now this photometric, which is the lighting plan that's been submitted. So you're not shooting in the dark at all by considering, and we hope granting this waiver, because you have a specific photometric plan, so you'll know what you'll be approving, which I dare say is probably more detailed than most subdivision plans. The next one is the stormwater management, which we have modified to say basically waive the requirement to apply to the select board, which I think is the proper board, or any other applicable board or department. But as Deb said, you know, and I know Dylan probably still needs to weigh in, but we believe we comply now, so we don't need waivers from the technical sections. Just as with 40, with any 40B, you are the comprehensive, quote-unquote, permit issuing authority, so we don't have to go to all the separate boards. So that's why we've characterized that request that way. Then other bylaws and regulations, no request to withdraw, and initially this is one that had been general, I agree, but it's been withdrawn. You know, we're not asking for any waivers from Board of Health regulations. In the bylaws, which I reviewed again before finishing this the other day, it's a little confusing. I think I have it right. The East Bridgewater construction phase, stormwater management and soil erosion control, which is construction phase bylaw, is I think within the stormwater management bylaw, at least it's related, but really the same request, just waive the requirement that we apply to the select board or whatever board if there's another board that generally or typically would have jurisdiction. And then the North Bedford Sanitary Sewer District, we had asked this initially and we've kept it the same. We're asking to waive the requirement to obtain the sewer district approval for connection. In fact, because the board or that commission and the town really already granted approval as per the agreement by and between the town of East Bridgewater and JSC Holdings LLC. But we're not asking for any, you know, technical waivers, because under the agreement that we have with them, there are technical requirements as with any utility systems, in this case sewer, you know, that we're not asking for waivers from. So that's in a way more procedural, if you will. Again, the town has already agreed that we're having the sewer connection, that we're allowed the sewer connection for the apartment units. So that covers them all. I think I do have in there, and if I forgot to put it in, then shame on me, but we had initially, and I might have not retyped it here, at least asked for your consideration on a request for waivers of municipal fees, building permit fees and the like for affordable units. But the guts of them are the ones that we just went through.
Are you saying you're asking for a waiver of municipal fees?
Yes.
Yeah, to the affordable units, I think he says. Yeah, I know he's asking. I see it's in his letter, it's in his letter.
Oh, it's in the cover letter.
I think it's in the
cover letter,
preamble.
It's in the cover letter. Do we know if this just came in, so has this been posted on the website, do you know? Okay.
I got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, go ahead, because
So,
I'm 4 minutes too many.
just so everybody, just a little bit, Lynn Sweet, LDS Consulting Group. So there are procedural waivers that the majority of these are procedural, meaning that when you come to get a comprehensive permit, that comprehensive permit means that you're going to one place to have all matters heard, rather than going to the planning board for site plan review and so on and so forth. So a lot of these are procedural waivers that the developer doesn't need to go to these other committees because they're local processes. Again, as we've discussed, the developer does have to comply with state regulations. So they're going in front of the Conservation Commission at the end of the month. They have to follow state DEP rules and regulations. At some point, they're going to go in front of the Board of Health. They have to follow Title V regulations. At some point, they're going to have to go to the state to get a permit, a roadway opening permit on a state road. So a lot of these, the way that we typically handle procedural waivers, because they're allowed those under the comprehensive permit, is we actually don't even include them in the waiver list. We really focus on what the actual waivers of the town bylaws are that are substantial and really what they're asking permission to do. My question kind of follows along the line, and I've seen lists that go on for days and days. So again, for the benefit of the audience, they're not asking for a lot of waivers. They're trying to comply with the town's rules and regulations for the most part. The biggest part is the dimensional, and I guess when you're telling me that you're going to take phase 1 and divide it into 3 lots, do we need that to be broken out into the different dimensional waivers because you are creating 3 lots from that? I don't need an answer today. It's just kind of like, I feel like I have a bug in my ear at the moment that is confusing me a little bit. And the other question that I have is, like, they don't need to waive the subdivision law. It's procedural. For me, the biggest thing is, so you have withdrawn your waiver of the stormwater management plan?
Just the performance standards. It's my understanding through our review with Apex that we are now meeting the requirements, performance standards.
Okay.
With respect to phosphorus and recharge, so that it's a water quality issue.
So to me, you are requesting a blanket waiver, and at this
No.
point, you're asking for a blanket waiver of the stormwater management plan.
No.
Of anything other than, it says right here, waive requirement to apply to board for other local.
That's all we're asking for, Lynn, is
Is the
just,
way, okay, so you're complying with everything?
yes.
Okay, that's why, well, Peter, it's the first time I've looked at this. I glanced at it earlier today. So that's very good news. They're basically saying they are complying with your stormwater management bylaw, and the only thing they're asking for is a procedural waiver. That's huge. So they are complying with the town's underlying stormwater management bylaw as well as the state. So the other one, the construction phase stormwater social. So the same thing, most of these are procedural then, other than,
There are some, a few,
Yeah,
most of the
there's a
dimensional we
couple of
comply
these-
with, as you said.
Yeah, there's a
and there
couple of
and there are some on
design
the subdivision rules and regs.
and dimensional, but other
But
than that,
that's
there are,
right.
I just wanted to make sure there were no blanket waivers in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I misread, it's, I think we all know it's been a week, starting with everybody back on Monday. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Would the board have anything they want to, about any of them? Feel free. You have anything from the planning board, Roy?
So I have one more question on this letter. So then apparently the letter that was, apparently Roy Gardner, Planning Board, so apparently the letter that was just presented to us, drafted on the 6th and just presented to us either yesterday or today, that starts off that the applicant also requests waivers be granted from any requirements to apply to any other town, municipal board or department. And it starts right off with Board of Health, Conservation Commission. I think we just said they're gonna still have to go to Board of Health and Conservation Commission.
Yeah, the comprehensive permit itself, the actual document that is akin to what you might see for a special permit or a variance, is going to have conditions. They cannot waive any state rules and regulations. So it will say you need to go to the Conservation Commission, you need to go to, we're not going to get a building permit until you get an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. You're not going to get a building permit unless you have a Title V permit. You're not going to get a building permit unless you have a state highway permit. So they are going to have to comply with all of the state rules, and in reality, it's a fairly short waiver list. A little bit of design standards and a little bit of dimensions.
So given those design standards, which I did look at earlier today,
Yeah.
that 1,700-foot roadway that's going to be part of Phase 1, except for the very few things asked in here, one of which is critical in my opinion, but, and that's the slope of the drainage pipe, because a very small slope is a problem. I'll let our engineer talk about that.
Okay.
But the other one is that everything else in that whole construction is going to be done according to the subdivision rules and regulations. If this letter is comprehensive in what the waiver is being asked for.
No. You're gonna comply with the subdivision? No, you're asking for a waiver.
We did ask for specific waivers.
Yeah, they're not required.
There's only a few in here.
They're not required.
If they didn't ask for them, does that mean they're going to comply with the rest?
No, the subdivision bylaws are not a state regulation. It's a local bylaw. So they're asking for a waiver of the subdivision rules and regulations.
All right, so that's not what this document says, which I started with originally.
They're not doing a subdivision.
Well, why are they listing the subdivision rules and regulations waivers in this document?
Peter, help me.
Yeah, so rule, so the design standards is section 4. So it's the design standards of the subdivision plan under planning board, so it's designs of the roadway. So we are asking for relief from, say, an 18-inch Cape Cod berm to a 12-inch Cape Cod berm. As stated, dead-end road is going from 900 to 1,700 approximately linear feet. And again, we were asking for relief for the pipe slope, as well as minimum cover and street lighting as shown on the plans.
Okay, so that's just what I was asked, and I was told otherwise. They've just said they're going to comply with the design standards contained within the subdivision rules and regulations, except for the specific waivers they've asked for. That's exactly what she just stated. That's exactly what the applicant
That's
just
correct.
stated
That's
here in
what-
a public
that's-
hearing.
We had, by the way, we'd always given the specifics on these. Some of them, as you saw when I went through them at length just now, we expanded on, and your request really was legit to be more specific. But these, we were always very specific. We believe, and of course I'm relying on the technical things from our engineer, but I think Apex agrees that other than these things that have just been identified, we're complying with the subdivision rules and regs.
This is for the construction of a roadway.
Yes, the roadway
So just for
construction.
clarification.
Yes, the construction of the roadway. And the same thing as Lynn, which I thank you and appreciate, has reiterated on most of these things. I think when she's saying procedural, it's simply that we don't have to apply to the planning board for the subdivision approval.
Well, we fully understand that, and that's actually in the list. Section 3, procedures
Correct.
for subdivision plans, waiver requested.
And to that point, the preamble that I think is what Mr. Gardner was referring to, it does very clearly say, not a blanket waiver from all local requirements. It said from any requirements to apply to the other town boards, which again, as Lynn has said ad infinitum tonight, that's exactly what 40B is all about. So we never asked for a blanket waiver from all local bylaws.
Except you list all the town boards in that first
Sir,
paragraph.
it said to apply to. That is what 40B is all about.
Right, and you just said you do have to apply to Board of Health and Conservation,
No,
which are the
under-
two boards
under-
listed in that
no,
list.
No, sir, under
One
the
at a
state bylaw, under the state regulations, we apply to Conservation Commission, the State Wetlands Protection Act, and under Title V, the state DEP regulations are not, are not under the jurisdiction of 40B. That's what we apply to Concom and the Board of Health for.
In accordance with state regulations.
State, yes.
I need to go back 1 second. Mr. Gardner, I just want to clarify something. I think I'm reading like you're reading it. So on your list of waivers, Section 4, design standards for submissions, on this document here.
Right.
It says, so you just want the requirement that they approve it, but you're not asking for the subdivision be wiped out completely, the law is wiped out completely, just those specific ones you list, Debbie, the curbing, the dead-end street issue, right?
Right, and we're
That's
asking that you, which again is basically mandated, other
Right.
consultants.
Yeah, I know
and
what you're
other
saying,
consultants
right.
on 40B.
I just want to clarify for everybody.
Right, so, but as Lynn pointed out, and as the whole point of 40B, we are asking you, obviously, once you're satisfied with these
Right.
waivers, hopefully, that you will endorse, the
The
subdivision
plan
plans.
that's right, the plan that's submitted,
yes.
and it's right, it's not called, I don't think it's called a subdivision in the 40B, I don't think it's called.
Well, no, it's still a subdivision,
But
it
it's,
just
but it's
doesn't-
made up of one, yes.
Right.
Sir, you have to identify yourself again.
Yep, no problem. Eric Woodward, 162 Winter Street. Again, I just think that if the project was scaled back a little, we wouldn't have such an extensive list of waivers. 1,700 feet of dead-end road that Mr. Gardner already mentioned. Has any consideration been given to, there's a multitude of large 3-unit buildings, and to scale it down to only 10 feet of separation? What if there was a fire Would the proposed water line have enough pressure? Or does the development also require fire suppression systems? And just to point out, obviously, a large portion of the property is currently zoned industrial.
Right, and they mentioned that, because part of the whole project is zoned industrial, part of the Hartford.
Right.
Yeah, and that's been addressed. They're
Yeah.
asking for waivers from, if
What
you look
about
at it, allowed uses industrial one,
Yep.
they're asking for that.
What about the fire?
Yeah, it's.
We
like
do
that-
have fire suppression.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do, as part of the process,
Three units have
they did a fire pressure testing with the water department to see whether or not there was enough pressure within the street. And then the building will have fire suppression
To go
in
to
it.
from 50 to 10 seems pretty good cut.
So may I clarify too, discussing a 10-foot separation between the buildings is with respect to Phase 1, the townhomes. The larger apartment buildings in Phases 2, 3, and 4 have much larger separation between the buildings.
So, I just want to ask a question back, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself. So, the townhomes, there's going to be duplexes, villas, however you want to call them nowadays, two units attached, and some 3-unit attached. No single units.
Correct.
I thought they were all 3 bedrooms.
No, I'm talking
No,
about
not
the number
bedrooms.
of
He's
units
talking about attached units.
Oh, the numbers
They're
that are-
mostly,
that
as
are
I recall, mostly
connected, row
duplexes, but with a
houses, yeah,
few
row
triplexes.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, condexes and
It's mostly tries.
Sorry,
Mostly
I got it,
triplexes.
mostly
Triplexes.
because the tries are required to have the fire suppression nowadays.
Yeah,
I
when
think,
you're 3 units,
By,
you
by,
have to
well, a
have
lot
fire
are required.
suppression.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because,
Yes.
okay, so the duplexes are mostly triplexes.
Mostly.
Right.
All right. All right. Anybody here have any questions about that? You guys are silent tonight. Do we have anything else on any of the discussion that we just had? Yep, sir, come on up. I think that mic works there, so if you identify yourself and your address, please?
Absolutely. Yes, Alan Matter, 92 Winter Street. A lot of discussion here tonight. I appreciate the board. I know it's a volunteer effort, and that's a lot of work involved. We had discussion about going from 1.33 parking spaces to 1.7 to 2.0, whatever. Whatever that is decided to be, can we agree to redo the traffic patterns? I live on Winter Street. It's a hell of a street between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, again from 4:30 to 5. That could add another 100 potential cars to it, that extra half car per unit with 240 units. So just get an agreement, we would get that traffic study done again. Can we get that agreed to?
Well, we can't force them to do that, because they've already done a traffic, and that our own engineer thought the traffic study was adequate, correct?
Is that part of the requirement, though, to do a traffic impact?
Well, they did a traffic study.
Right, but based
Steve,
on
can-
1.33 units, cars per unit, right?
No, the
Steve,
vehicle
could you-
trips per day
Hi,
is
Steve.
separate.
Steve, could you talk on the mic so that everyone can hear your answer?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, Steve Shikari with Apex Companies, the peer reviewer. So the traffic impact study has been completed for this project. And so the parking element is typically separate from the trip generation element. Those are two separate things. I believe, the applicant's team, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe on Winter Street portion of the project, they are adding about between 40 to 50 cars during the busiest peak hours. That's what the traffic analysis shows, and it's based on standard engineering practice. We looked at that, and there are no open comments at this point on the traffic on our
So
end.
when you say the busy times, would that be referring to what this gentleman asked, that the rush hour type times, 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock, 4:30, 5:30 at night? Would that be the times you get the heavier traffic?
Yes, typically traffic studies are being done to look at the busiest peak hours. Normally, it falls within the peak commuter traffic between 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m., and that's what they did in their traffic study.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, anything else you can,
Yes, I do appreciate the engineering work on that, but if you're adding more cars to it, wouldn't that add more cars to the traffic pattern? If you're adding more parking spaces, that wouldn't add more, what are the cars just gonna sit there all day? They're gonna have to leave at some point, and that'll add to the congestion, true?
are you talking there'll be 40 additional car trips? Is that what you're talking?
Yes.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So
So
40
if we
additional,
add spaces is no more cars, all right.
yeah.
I'm confused on how that happens.
Sometimes.
No, it makes no sense. Secondly, the young lady right over there said earlier, where a lot of moving pieces here. I've tried going to the websites, I've gone to selectmen's meetings, things such as that. We keep hearing the other boards doing that, and I can appreciate the effort by all the boards. We can't get a consistent, updated list of what's happening. I heard tonight, this letter was delivered just before the meeting, and I got that one yesterday. A lot of moving pieces, and what I've heard is we're going to take that under advisement, we'll get back to you tomorrow. As public, we don't see what happens during that time. We come to the next meeting, we find out we discussed that already. So if that could be made available to the public so they can see the most current, I think a lot of us would appreciate that.
I think, I know our assistant tries to get whatever we get in, we try to get it up as fast as we can. I got the same thing as you get, January 6th.
Right.
You know, that's 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So my job and we all work, so our jobs get put
I
aside a
understand,
little
I
bit.
appreciate
But
the
we do
efforts.
try, as soon as things
Yeah.
can come in, we do, from our perspective, I can't tell you what other boards do, but from our perspective, when things come in on this, we try to get it up as fast as we can.
Yeah. And that leads to the last question I have.
Yep, go ahead.
If we can, with some of the things, I just got that now, and I saw a lot of shuffling on papers, yourself,
Yeah,
turning around, flipping
right.
pages. Everything here is electronic. Can we broadcast it so all of us can see what's happening? Bring down a screen and show us, here's the update you gave us. There were questions about parcel 1A and 1B, and everyone's trying to figure out what it is. We could at least point to it on the
Then you
screen.
won't see my smiling face, because the screen will come down in front of us.
Well, no, I mean...
I'm teasing.
It makes sense. Information isn't good unless it's shared and communicated.
Yeah, I mean, there was some, if you've been to the zoning town meeting, which I go to, obviously, there were some the things that are put on we drop the screen
Right.
down.
Why don't we
And
do
the
it?
applicant or the moving party has that. Obviously, so one of the things you saw me sputtering around for was actually I wanted to confirm our parking bylaw, because that's why I
Understood.
said the parking law was,
Yeah.
you know.
But that is a formal request. If we could
Yeah,
somehow...
you know, this is so, like Mr. Gardner said, I've been sitting here now 30 years, and he's been here a little longer than me. This is only my second, I don't know where the third one is, Roy. The third project. Which one? Oh, yeah, Santilli. Okay, so I guess maybe I was there. But this is very unique for the zoning board to get one of these every 10 years at least, right? And so normally, we have our meetings in a little conference room over at Town Hall. We have 3 people
Understood,
show up. So we
understood.
try to accommodate if we can. If somebody if the applicant said, look, we have a presentation, we would certainly try to make arrangements. Yeah, I think the senior center, we had some presentations made.
Yeah,
and we had the board.
I mean, if the technology is available, which apparently it's not here, we
Yeah.
routinely have the
Right.
zip drives and
Yeah, so
whatever you call
because
them,
some of
put
the
'em in, and,
stuff
yeah.
we can't do here
But-
because we get the TV, because the TV has to come in and set up, and do you remember, I don't know if you were here, for the other meeting we had here, nobody could hear, I couldn't see, because the way the technology here works. But we've certainly taken into consideration. As far as other boards, and sort of consulting, each board operates on their own schedule, shall we say.
But you've got a pretty good crowd here.
Absolutely.
And I'm only speaking myself. A lot of good discussion here. I have no idea what you're talking about, so I can't see it.
Yeah.
And you're also saying we can't see where the parking spaces are. It'd be nice so all of us could share that information.
So,
Enough said.
Go ahead.
yeah, my suggestion is that wherever we have our next meeting, that we have the ability to do that, especially if we're going to be parsing through a decision. We're going to want to bring that up so everyone can see the
Where is
conditions
our
and
next
stuff
meeting?
like that. Is that possible?
Our next meeting
Maybe kids from
is
the
at the
AV
council,
department.
at the
The Council
senior
on
center or
Aging,
the
we do have
community center.
electronic
And I think
availability.
we did that last time, right?
I think so.
We did,
Yeah,
yeah, so we'll do it.
So our next meeting, we will be doing that because we have the capability at the community center or HMOC.
Okay, thank you.
So I mean, I understand your confusion, and because, like I said, some of this stuff, I mean, literally the past 2 days, my inbox at work was inundated.
Yep, we all-
And that's why even she said some of the stuff gets missed, so, but I appreciate it, we will, at least the next meeting, we'll,
Thank you.
are you all set? All set?
All set.
All
Thank
right,
you.
You have to identify yourself again.
Yeah, sure. Meredith Walsh, 160 Northridge Drive. So I had questions about that traffic study. So you're saying, so there's 80 units, right? And you're saying that we will see at peak time, so 7, 8 a.m., 40 additional cars on the road on Winter Street.
I believe that's what the numbers were.
Is that?
Yeah, the applicant's
That's,
team
so
confirm. Yeah.
do we know the length of Winter Street? That would be nice if we had a projector, but if you can imagine Winter Street and 40 cars, if I'm trying to go onto Route 14, and I have to sit in 40 cars, school buses, okay, that are trying to get our kids to school, I have to sit in a line of 40 cars when it goes from Winter to Beaver to Route 14. Do you know, do you guys realize
but I
how
don't
far?
think it's, I think it's over a period of time. It's like it's a 2 or 3 hour period to do the study, so
Yeah,
it's not
could be
40
one a
cars,
minute.
and I understand what you're saying. 'cause-
Okay, but so then
Yeah, I know what you're
20
saying,
cars,
but yeah,
15
Is
cars,
it going to impact traffic?
hugely.
Absolutely.
This is what I don't
But-
understand. Well, you guys did the traffic study in 2021, which was COVID, and then you guys redid the traffic study and said that there was no difference between 2021 to now, and, which I don't understand that, but now you're going to bring in 80 units, you're only assuming half of those people drive, and that they'll be on the road at the same time when everyone's going to rush hour, and that, sure, 40, 50 cars, whatever, that we're estimating in the span of 2 to 3 hours, but that's going to be 20 cars that we're in the line with, plus buses, plus trash coming around at the same time on Winter Street, which apparently is 23.6. Sure, okay. I'll
I'm only
disagree.
quoting what I'm told.
We got to fold our mirrors in when we're driving down that road because you'll hit, not a tree, you'll hit a telephone pole, so I appreciate that they offered to do some tree trimming, okay? But we're still going to hit the telephone poles going by there when there's a truck on the other side of the road. So that's what I don't understand, that the traffic impact just there, and then not only at Route 14, which could potentially hold it a little bit more, but you have winter onto summer, backing that up there. And then on the other side of that neighborhood is coming out from Route 18. So I'm focusing on the Winter Street there. But what about Highland and Route 18 there? Now, that was discussed last meeting, saying that that is going to be under, the Department of Transportation is looking at in the next couple of years.
Highway.
Okay.
Because that's a state, Route 18 is a state road, so.
Sure, but if anyone's ever come up Highland and attempted to cross over Highland right there, I mean, you have to wait until Route 18 decides to stop going despite a red light so that you don't die going across there. And so now you're putting that in, and between the warehouse, whenever that comes in, I know those are two separate projects, as we talked about last week, I paid attention, okay? But you have these roads are too small for such a large scale amount of stuff happening. Those roads can't handle it. And that was my point last time, and that's my point again with the traffic study, that with the traffic study, there's just too many cars on those little intersections. They
I do
can't
have a
handle
question.
it.
So I didn't hear the street you live on. Would you live on Winter?
I live on Captains, but I'm
Okay. So
Captains
actually,
and
you're
Northridge.
perfect for my question, because when I was
Perfect,
talking
yes.
to the highway department, maybe it might be a more question for
Yeah,
Eric,
and
because he
Winter,
lives
too.
on
There's a couple
Winter. But my understanding is, I don't know exactly how big Captain's is, that whole development. But
Wait, Captain's Way, like the
yeah,
street?
that whole development, is that where you live, in Captain's Way?
Yeah, in Northridge,
that
yeah.
development?
They're all single houses.
How many?
Single houses, like
No,
just...
how many though, do you know?
Maybe...
50?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of streets.
Yeah, no, the reason I'm asking is,
So-
and maybe it's more from Eric, I
Yeah,
apologize last
I
name.
haven't
What
been there.
impact does, I'm just curious, what impact does Captain's has that had on Winter Street? I know they opened up the back end. I'm just curious because when, every development causes problems, maybe.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, though, Captain's Way has multiple entrances.
Yeah, I know. Oh, no, I know. Well, basically there's two, one on Highland and one on Winter. I'm just curious if someone who lives, I hit traffic all the time. I live on Central Street, so I get both schools, I live between both schools, so I never get out of my driveway in the morning. Identify yourself, please.
Sharon Woodward, 162 Winter Street.
You're with Eric.
So I can completely speak for Winter Street. She took the wind out of my sails with the 2021 traffic test during COVID. Completely incomparable.
Yeah, we went over.
Everybody discovered our road when they decided to do Route 14. So Winter Street became almost as busy as Route 14 as somebody that has kids going to school, driving, walking my dog, which is taking your life in your hands. Captain's Way had an impact, not a tremendous one, because there's two different
Yeah, I'm
ways
just
to get in
curious,
and out.
because like I said, I've driven down there to see.
Yeah, I drive my kids to and from school because I'm not gonna have them even wait at the end of my street. There's no way that this is not gonna have such a detrimental impact to this road. You have minimal room when you go to drive, as it is. And I don't care if it's a truck, an SUV. I don't know if you guys are doing rock, paper, scissors to figure out who gets that .33 spot, but you're gonna have way more than 40 cars going, and it's gonna be a huge impact.
Well,
There's
that just-
already, where you go on Winter Street to get to Summer, it's a very dangerous spot. It also has Southeastern Regional drop-offs. You go to try to get onto any of these streets, it's very narrow, it's gonna be a huge impact.
Okay, that's why I'm curious, because like I said, somebody had asked me about the impact Captain's had, and I said, I don't know, I don't live there. So that's why I was trying to get,
Stephen,
Yeah.
did they do sort of split off what was gonna be kind of, can you explain a little bit more about how the disbursement goes when they do these kinds of studies?
Sure. So a few things to clarify. So in their study that we reviewed, there was data from an older version of the study that was provided, and from 2021, and then we asked them to count that street again in 2024, and the numbers came out very close.
let him speak, please, let him speak.
And that was about 1,500 vehicles a day, which, I actually, because it was a topic of concern, I looked at it today. And the busiest hour was sometime between 3 and 4 p.m., I think with about 150 cars an hour, which if you assume like a uniform stream of traffic, it will translate into about 2.5 vehicles per minute in both directions. So it translates into 1 to 2 vehicles in each direction during every minute. What this project adds, based on all the numbers that they provided, is that they send most of the traffic through north, coming out of the development going north and then splitting off to the west and east. So the majority of traffic is traveling through north, through Beaver Street. And based on the numbers that they provided, and as I mentioned, we looked at it, compared it with like what's done typically in the transportation industry. And those numbers translate into about like half a vehicle to 1 vehicle, I believe, during each minute. So instead of looking at 1 to 2 vehicles per minute in each direction, you'll be looking at 2 to 3 vehicles per minute in each direction. That's based on what the numbers show, and that's what we reviewed. And we had one of our engineers who we typically do the site visit to see the overall conditions and how the traffic is flowing and all that. And I actually asked about his experience there. What he described lined up with the numbers that we see, but that was during like a portion of the evening peak hour that he observed. So if the public, the local residents experience differently during different hours of the day, we wouldn't be able to find out, but we reviewed the traffic as it was given to us. I can let the applicant's team add anything if they want to my
remarks.
Jeff? And again, for the record, identify yourself again.
Again, Jeff Bandini, Senior Project Manager with Niche Engineering. So the 40 vehicles that Steve mentioned, I just wanted to clarify the breakdown for that. So this was included in our September 26 memorandum, where we were requested by the applicant to produce additional traffic data as part of our original, when we were here over the summer in July, we had agreed to provide that additional data, and we, again, waited until September after school was in session to collect that data, and we submitted that as part of our September 26 memorandum. So the 40 vehicles that Steve mentioned, that's the total amount during the weekday AM. So the number is, he said 40, the number we showed was 38. So that includes both entering and exiting. So understandably, during the weekday morning peak hour, predominantly you have people exiting the site to go to work. You have some residual traffic entering during that time. And during the weekday afternoon, you tend to see the opposite, right? You have people arriving back from work. You have some residual folks leaving. So in the weekday morning, you see 38 total. So that's 12 entering and 26 exiting. So that basically amounts to, a vehicle once every few minutes, as Steve mentioned, because you're really only getting 26 exiting per hour. And from that 26, we understand a majority are traveling north towards Route 14. Some would be traveling south, but understanding that the north is a predominant location. And the peer reviewer did mention that, based on the available capacity at the Route 14 Beaver Street intersection, didn't foresee necessarily a problem with the operations along Winter Street as it transitions to Beaver. So that addresses the weekday morning concern and the weekday afternoon. You tend to see a little bit more traffic during the afternoon, 46 vehicles total, so 26 entering and 20 exiting. So in the afternoon, you don't see the vehicles pulling out of the driveway necessarily. You will see folks turning left into the site rather than turning right out of the site, so we understand the critical nature of that particular movement. As far as the Highland Avenue intersection that was mentioned, that intersection is under consideration for improvement through Mass DOT. It's in the very preliminary design stages at this point, sort of the pre-25%, and I believe it's on the transportation improvement plan for 2029. So between now and 2029, Mass DOT will go through their regular schedule of preliminary design, 25% design, 75%, 100%, and at some point they will have a design public hearing to discuss what's being planned at that intersection.
All right, thank you. Sir?
Ron Ross, 36 Captain's Way. Just what happens if none of that's true? What if it's 3 times that? What do we do then?
Complain to the town. I'm not trying to, we make our decision based on, we have our own engineer. So we make our decision based on the information supplied to us. I mean, if it's like anything. It's like anything. If there's
So
but
just numbers that can be maneuvered and played with.
Lynn, go ahead.
It's a tough question. This is a multi-phase project, so if it's possible that, the building department, if there's a complaint or there are issues that the building, fire, DPW, police may need to put their heads together and see, if there are any solutions that are available, if there's any type of enforcement that can be done.
So these guys should be
It's
putting their name on it.
possible
They
that
should do the
we could
improvements.
request a post, actually, we've done this on other projects. As I'm thinking out loud, I'm sorry, I'm really fading.
Yeah, we might be wrapping up 2 hours is the limit
We
here.
could do a post development count and come up with something if there are issues, but
So the people
I
that come
need
up
to-
with
I
the
need to-
numbers have no.
I need
Wait a
to
minute, go
put
on.
some more brain cells on what something like that might look like.
So Ron, what happens in a normal zoning case is that if we grant something.
Yeah.
And it becomes a problem, first we send the zoning enforcement officer out to look at it. If it's in violation of what we've granted, then they basically told to stop. If they're in violation, told to stop it. If they don't, one case we had somebody rip down an addition to a house because they violated the terms of zoning. I mean, don't go to that extreme, but we did it. But the town would enforce, I mean, basically, we'd have a decision, and if something's not in compliance, now, again, the car thing, right, how do you decide, like, let's say it's not, 40 cars over the span, but it's 120 cars, and all of a sudden, you do find, like this lady said, you get a 40-car backup trying to get onto 14. I mean, that again, the town has to look at that and has to address it.
But, so Meredith
Wait a
Walsh.
minute, wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Because I don't want to cut.
I just
Mr.
wanted to, no, I wanted to piggyback on.
Yeah, but
what
I
he
didn't want
was
to cut
saying.
him, Mr. Ross,
Sorry.
off, because I don't want him mad at me. I
I'm
know
sorry.
that.
It's gotta be a long time.
I don't know, so is there anything else, Sean?
So, yeah, one more question. First of all, thank you, guys. Does the town get to vote on this at some point?
Nope. This decision on this development is us. The zoning board is an appointed board, and we make zoning decisions. This is not like the thing we just, the MBTA thing the town did vote on, which now is probably have to be looked at because the law that the case came out today. But the zoning board makes the decision on this case, taking into consideration what has been said, but also knowing the sort of, I'm not sure restrictions, but guidelines the state has sort of put upon us. I don't know if you were at the beginning here, Ron, when I went over the fact that we don't have, we don't meet the guidelines for the state to basically turn down 40Bs in a sense.
Yeah, to sort of add on to that, again, this is one step in the process. The first step in the process, happened long before any of us got involved with it, with regard to creating the sewer that's going, a line that's going to be able to serve the apartments. That,
just so you know,
that did go to town meeting.
Yes, it did. I mean, these things have all.
That went to town meeting.
And so-
The ZBA is essentially a site plan approving board. So instead of this going to the planning board for site plan approval, it's coming in front of the ZBA. But there is a lot of process ahead. There certainly is all of the process with finishing the permitting and the building of the sewer line. There is the Conservation Commission process that's happening. There will be the Title V process that will be happening. There will be the State Transportation Board with regard to what's going to happen in the state road. So it is a process. Not every question is going to be answered today. The goal of working on an opinion is basically to say, before you get a building permit, these are the things that you need to satisfy. That is what's going to come out of this board, is conditions that hopefully the developer will find, reasonable and doable. And that's why we're sort of gathering information tonight and, listening to what everyone's saying and what your concerns are, and seeing what we can't, what the board can and can't address. I don't think, this is pretty far, it is far down the road, but there is no zoning bylaw that's being changed that would need, a town meeting vote. It's not going, it's already been in front of the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen supported this application in the first step within it. So it may not satisfy what you're asking, but hopefully it answers the question.
Oh, yeah, you won't satisfy me, but thank you. But based on that, we don't get to vote on it. Last comment from me, and it's negative, and I apologize, but this is what I heard tonight from the presenters. Failure to meet some requirements, blanket waiver, not enough parking, septic application denied. If I brought a presentation like that to my boss, he would walk me out of the building.
That's,
So Meredith Walsh, 160
Yeah,
North
thank
Ridge, in case we forgot. But I think what he was kind of getting at is when this traffic happens and I call up, who's on the hook for this? They've left. They took their money, they ran, okay? We're left with it. We're going to have to widen the street, okay? We're going to have to put in a set of lights at certain places to handle these traffic. That's the town of East Bridgewater. So my taxes are going to go up. We're pushing affordable housing. I understand that. I need that, all right? But I need affordable taxes, okay? And these issues are going to arise, and they're going to fall on the town of East Bridgewater. to handle these. So that's my issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to look at on the permit, from, you know, from bonding and to holdbacks to, I don't know. I don't want to go too far down the road because I know it's not going to be received very well. I want to think it through a lot more because it's 200 and something units, which
It's too big. It's too big for this area.
And
It's too big. So, and that's kind of, I think, what we're all, our
But
issue is.
I mean, besides trying to think about some checks and balances once it's built, because with large projects, sometimes there are checks and balances, like I said, construction counting of parking and cars and whatnot. And now I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's late for me.
Yeah, but there's a lot of issues, and they need to be vetted before,
Yeah, well,
and we have a lot of questions.
We've got a lot to do over the next month. I think
Right.
everybody acknowledges
Right.
that. We're hearing what you're saying. We're handicapped because we don't have our stormwater,
Sure.
person here today. But most of these estimates are based on industry standards.
Sure. I guess I guess, like, again, going back to the traffic, we're making a lot of assumptions. You're assuming that there's 80, hold on, just one sec. There's 80 units. You're assuming that only half of the people are leaving to go to work. Now, those units are going to be what, 500, 600, 700,000?
Yeah, I'm guessing, we don't know, but I'm.
Yeah, but they're going to be expensive. No, one person's not going to be working.
Right.
There are also 3 bedrooms, so you're going to have multiple people. So you're looking at 80 units, potentially times 2, so 160 people potentially being in those units, okay? And then half of those leaving, okay, which is now 80, okay, assuming that there's 2 people living in those units, okay? So now you have 80 cars coming out during those peak times. Now, you just said that they went from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 per minute. So that the traffic increased by 33%. 33% on Winter Street.
300%.
Huh?
1 to 3 is 300%.
Oh, yeah, but like it's increasing, and we're fine with that amount of traffic on that small of a road. Now, we're also only talking about winter, so what happens when the 240 units on 18 come in, and all those people use their Waze app, and they find that they can come through my neighborhood, okay, down winter, down summer, with all these people's kids
You can't
outside.
they can't access out to Winter Street.
No, when I'm on 18 and
Oh,
I'm
you mean
trying
if they move around or
to skip
something?
down going 18, because I don't want to go through that, and now all the traffic from the 240 units, they're going to be cutting down. So when my kids run across the street to their neighbors, like, I have now increased traffic from Winter Street, that development, but now all the people trying to cut through our neighborhood, trying to avoid Route 18. That's what I'm concerned about.
So it's again, I want the traffic person to talk about how they deal with sort of background traffic and increase over time. I also want to point out, I know that you were concerned about finances and taxes going up, that these projects will be, paying substantial building permit fees, and they will, of course, be paying real estate taxes. So, there will be money, money coming into the community that will come into the general fund. So again, I don't know how it's going to be allocated, but I think it's important for that not to be lost. But Stephen, I forgot the word about how you deal with, if traffic, the fact that when you do a traffic study, you take into effect other, and I don't know, you can say it. I know I forgot it last meeting too. That they take into effect other things that might be coming online and so on and so forth.
Like the projection from other background plan projects and
Yeah,
growth
so
rate.
it's not just this project, because you're saying, well, what
Correct.
if people start to think about doing cut-through and stuff like that?
All right. Well, go ahead, Steve, if you need to address it.
Sure. So yes, normally with these traffic studies, there's a general background growth that usually is obtained by reviewing the historic data or, count stations that have recorded, volumes for multiple years. That's one way, or, there might be different sources that each firm or engineer might use, but there's a general background growth, and as part of the standard practice, they usually project that for 7 years, 7 years out. On top of that, if there are any major upcoming developments planned or have been studied, have been estimated how much traffic they will generate, those will be accounted as well. I can let the applicant's team to speak to the specifics for this project, but I believe they did take into account a background growth rate of maybe even slightly larger than what it typically is. I think 1.5%, something like that.
Yeah, it was slightly larger just because we didn't have the full information from the warehouse project during the time of the projection. So we added in a little bit extra to the traffic along Route 18 to account for that.
Thank you. I'm going to try to, the hour's late, I'm going to let this gentleman, this woman speak, and then Peter, if you need to follow up some, but just, we've been over 2 hours doing it. I notice it's getting late. Again, before everyone runs out, February 12th?
Well,
I just wanted to go to the next meeting before people leave. February 12th at 7 o'clock at the Station Rock Community Center, Senior Center, place we were last month. Just so people, so, sir, you were patient, thank you.
Yep, Kevin Fontana, 25 Northridge. So I have a couple of questions just related to traffic. What about the construction vehicles going in and out while they're building this project?
Yeah.
Are they going in and out of Winter Street?
That's the only way they can access it, I think. There's not going to be an exit onto 18 from the Winter Street side, am I correct? Am I?
yeah, I don't remember the detail, but we discussed it at the last
Right.
meeting, and we submitted in writing the construction traffic plan.
Yeah, and that's coming onto Winter Street. And I think all construction was going to come from 14, I believe it said.
You remember the detail?
Yeah, we submitted a TMP the second meeting.
Yeah, with the question about Winter Street.
14, everything.
Yeah, everything's coming off Route 14, correct?
So Route 14 down Beaver and
To
Winter Street?
to the road or driveway, whatever you want to call it.
So, I mean, you're talking a lot of big trucks and things going
During
in and out of there
construction
for
phase.
however long it's going to take to build. So
During
just,
construction phase, but that's with any project, as you know.
no, I know, but just everyone's talking about the width of that road
Yep.
and whatnot. So that was one question. The other question I had, is there a road connecting the condos and the apartments? That, 'cause it
Nope.
looks like there is, no?
No, there's
no
no,
road?
there's not
Am I
going to be any,
misunderstanding that?
no
Okay.
cut-throughs.
So the apartment people cannot be
So
coming
I
out on
think, as
Winter
you
Street?
heard, our state technical, it's almost two projects, maybe
Yeah.
it should have been as two projects, but it's almost two projects. There won't be a connecting, you won't be able to cut from that Winter Street side to the Route 18 side.
Okay. So that sort of brings up my other question, the two projects. I saw online that the properties are for sale. The condo is separate from the apartment, and the apartments are being sold as either 1 or 4 units. 40-unit buildings.
Oh, in the buildings, right.
Buildings. So, and this is just my own newness to 40Bs and whatnot. What happens if those are sold separately to different developers?
You mean
The-
if we approve this and they turn around and
Does
sell it?
everything, all the plans and everything have to stay the same? Do we have to go through all this again with a new developer? Like, how does that work?
I know that, but I'm going to let Mr. Freeman, you
Oh,
want to?
sure. No, the plans definitely stay the same. We have specifically, from the outset, said it is phased and, and needed to be approved as phased and with some flexibility, although we've given you the projection of the components of what we think the phases will be. But ultimately, under the 40B regulations, it's not just a unilateral transfer of the perimeter. The state agency has to approve. It's not the zoning board that has to approve, we advise you, but it's the state agency that has to review any buyer that's going to take over one or more phases. So yes, it can be multiple and probably will be, or at least could be, multiple owners in the future. The townhouses obviously wind up with individual unit owners, but for the different phases, again, it's not willy-nilly the state subsidizing agency would have to approve it.
And that's not,
The state's going to approve the transfer to ensure that the party that's taking over the permits
that's fine.
has the background and the financial wherewithal to take over those permits.
But also that they
But
agree to
also,
build
they don't want to
everything.
lose the
Oh, yeah.
affordable
Yeah,
units.
again,
so
unless
they-
there's requests for changes in the plans, either by us or a successor, it's absolutely what will be approved.
Yeah, so and that's not unusual, you know, this is what I do, part of my job is sometimes I do zoning stuff for clients, and I mean, a lot of times they'll propose a plan, they get it approved, or not even this type of plan, and then they turn around and sell it.
Somebody
And
else
when
has
they
work.
sell it, that person's stuck with doing exactly what the town of Abington gave them.
But what I think is really important to know is that the permits run with the land. So whatever conditions are put into this permit today, any successor in interest
Gets those.
is going to have to comply with that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And you can close the night for us if you'd like.
Hi, my name is Michelle Irvin. I live at 82 Tardy Terrace. I've been there for like 30 years, and I do disagree with the traffic that's coming in and out. You're not only talking about cars, you're talking about FedEx, you're talking about UPS, you're talking about Amazon deliveries, and the traffic actually starts at about 2 because that's the time that the buses start going. And they're not just going to go through Winter Street. They're going to come up Highland. They're going to find those cuts. And I'm actually just concerned about safety for the kids. And I know that you say wait until it goes in and see what happens, but there were safety issues there when they were putting in the new development, and we actually approached because there's a bus stop there and a stop sign, and nothing comes of it. So I don't know what can be done, but I really would like to see them try and, I don't know, do their best to try and avoid all that, but the traffic is way worse than what
When
you
you come
came
out
up
of,
with.
when you come out, I know Tardy Terrace onto Highland, there's not a stop sign?
There is.
Oh.
There's actually a stop sign, right? I live at the corner,
Yeah.
and there's a stop sign, and then there's a stop sign prior to that that's just like a shadow of a stop sign, and a lot of people do stop, but there's so many people that don't stop.
Oh, well, some people don't stop
Is
at red
there-
lights nowadays, come
Yeah.
down Route 18 when I come home. It's
Yeah,
Is,
yeah.
is there an issue with speed on the street, or is the issue concern that there is like slow down and back up?
It's both, and it's, trucks coming in because there's still houses being built.
Yeah.
And I'm not against that. I think change is great.
But it's not like people are cutting through every day at like 40 miles an hour sort of thing.
Oh, sometimes they're going
But
50.
that's a development that's already built.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah. But it's not just
I'll
cars.
talk, I have an
because-
idea. I'm going to
because,
talk with
you know,
Steve-
that
with
was
Stephen about.
closed off Winter Street for a long time.
I just don't know
That
if
gate
anything
came
needs
across.
calming, like,
I
you
know.
know, like the flasher sort of things. you know?
Yes, things like that, I
Or
think are-
crosswalk, or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do that, but it doesn't, it sounds like this is more of a side street that's not really just a like a throughway on it.
But it's more of a safety issue.
Yeah, no, understandable.
That's it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
We'll,
All right.
we'll talk after.
All right, so we're going to continue this hearing. Was that the right date I gave out? February 12th? February 12th at the Community Center, Sachem Walker, down on Plymouth Street, where we were the last meeting. Oh, yeah, Peter, you can
Just
close
one
it.
quick housekeeping thing. I believe we had addressed it at a previous hearing to expedite the review and the discussions between our professionals and
Yep.
Apex. And I know that you said it was okay, but I think that Duncan might have not got the message. But could you just reiterate to Apex that they are authorized to talk directly and
Oh,
to
I
send
thought
things?
I thought maybe you guys didn't, we did do that last meeting.
But it seems as though
Read a vote.
they didn't send things directly to Deb Keller.
Yeah, I think we did at the beginning, so, yeah, so.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate.
Yes.
Everything goes, I mean, the documentation is going through Dorothy because it has to be documented.
Understood, but
Yes,
they cannot.
Steve,
But yes,
you
I
guys can
already sent
talk
out
directly
an
with-
email about the working
you guys
session
should talk
to get
directly with
people's
those
dates.
guys.
Yeah, thank you.
We
Thank
did
you.
that a couple meetings ago.
Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you coming out. Have a
Do
good
you
night.
need to do a roll call or anything?
We'll be here Monday at town meeting.